I stared at the massive banner hanging across the conference room. Happy Retirement Minerva. They'd even ordered a cake, champagne, and invitation cards for 200 guests. The problem was, I never said I was retiring. This was the company I built from nothing over 40 years, and now my adopted son was throwing a party to push me out without even asking. The conference room bustled with activity as employees decorated for my surprise retirement party. Through the glass walls of my corner office, I watched Jasper directing the setup, his designer suit crisp and perfectly tailored, his smile wide and confident. That same smile I'd seen when I first met him at the foster home 23 years ago. I'm Minerva Blackwood. And this is the story of how I taught my son the most important lesson of his life: that respect is earned, not demanded. It started 3 weeks ago on a crisp Monday morning in September. I arrived at Blackwood Electronics headquarters at my usual 6:30 a.m., the early autumn sun just beginning to paint the Manhattan skyline in gold and amber. The security guard Thomas, who had worked here for 15 years, seemed surprised to see me. "Morning, Ms. Blackwood," he said, avoiding eye contact and fidgeting with his tie. I thought never mind. "Thought what, Thomas?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. He shifted uncomfortably. "Nothing, ma'am. Have a good day." Strange, but I brushed it off. The executive floor was unusually quiet as I stepped off the elevator. My assistant's desk sat empty. Carla was never late in her 15 years of service. The coffee maker, usually gurgling with fresh brew by now, sat cold and silent. I unlocked my office door and stopped short. A young woman in trendy glasses and an asymmetrical haircut was measuring my windows with a laser device. "Excuse me," I said, my voice sharp with surprise. The woman jumped, nearly dropping her equipment. "Oh, Mrs. Blackwood, I'm so sorry. I thought you wouldn't be in today. I'm Zoe from Stellar Designs. Mrs. Whitmore hired us to redesign this space." Celeste, my daughter-in-law who'd never worked a day in her life, who spent her days at charity luncheons and spa appointments, was redesigning my office. "There must be some mistake," I said calmly, though my heart was beginning to race. "Please leave." The designer gathered her things hastily. "Of course, I'm so sorry. I'll just—" Mrs. Whitmore said the office would be empty by next month, so we were getting measurements for the renovation. Next month, I watched her scurry out, then sank into my leather chair, a knot forming in my stomach. Something was very wrong. I opened my email and found the first clue: a forward from Alistair Wu, my CFO and closest friend since the early days of the company. "Min thought you should see this," his message read. Found it accidentally CC'd to my assistant. Below was an email chain between Jasper and the board members. My hands trembled slightly as I read, "The timeline is set. The retirement party will provide the perfect cover for the transition. The old lady needs to rest anyway. She's holding the company back with her outdated methods. Once she's out, we can modernize operations and maximize profits. The investors are ready to move forward with the IPO as soon as she's gone. Old lady." After everything I'd done for him, I sat back. Memories flooding my mind. I remembered the day I met Jasper like it was yesterday. He was 15, angry at the world, bouncing between foster homes. I was visiting the group home as part of our company's community outreach program. Something in his eyes reminded me of myself at that age, hungry for a chance, desperate to prove himself worthy of love. "What are you looking at?" he'd snapped when he caught me observing him. "Someone who reminds me of myself," I'd replied. "Yeah, right. Rich lady like you. You don't know anything about me." "I know you're angry. I know you think the world owes you something. I know you're smart enough to hack the home's computer system. Yes, I heard about that, and I know you're wasting your potential. Feeling sorry for yourself." He'd stared at me, defiance warring with curiosity in his eyes. 3 months later, after countless visits and conversations, I brought him home. For 8 years, I poured everything into him. I helped with homework until midnight, attended every baseball game, even during crucial business trips, stayed up through his teenage rebellions and heartbreaks. When he showed interest in the business at 18, I mentored him personally, teaching him everything from coding to corporate strategy. I paid for his MIT education, supported him through failures, celebrated his successes. When he married Celeste 5 years ago, I welcomed her warmly. Despite my reservations about her materialistic nature, I gave them a house in Westchester, as a wedding gift, helped them settle in, tried to build a relationship with her, despite our differences. And now this. The next few days revealed more pieces of the puzzle. I played detective in my own company, staying late, arriving early, accessing files I normally wouldn't review. Jasper had been meeting with private equity firms for months, planning to take the company public after forcing me out. He'd convinced most of the board that I was losing my edge and that my resistance to modern practices was holding back potential profits. I discovered emails where he'd called me sentimental for refusing to offshore our manufacturing, old-fashioned, for insisting on keeping our senior employees, and stubborn for maintaining our commitment to quality over cost-cutting. Celeste had already picked out new furniture for my office, all white and chrome, erasing the warm woods and personal touches I'd cultivated over decades. They'd even scheduled interviews for my replacement, a ruthless cost cutter from a competitor known for gutting companies and selling them off in pieces. The retirement party was to be the final act, a public spectacle to make my removal seem voluntary and celebratory, complete with speeches about my well-deserved rest and the exciting new chapter for Blackwood Electronics. I should have been devastated. Instead, I felt something else stirring. The same fire that had driven me to build this company from nothing, the same determination that had helped me survive every challenge thrown my way. "If they want me gone," I whispered to my reflection in the office window one evening, watching the city lights twinkle below. "I'll leave on my own terms." That night I made a call I never thought I'd make. Maximilian Volkov answered on the second ring. "Minerva Blackwood." His deep voice rumbled through the phone with a hint of an accent. "To what do I owe this unexpected pleasure?" Max and I had been rivals for decades. His company, Tech Giant Corp., was our biggest competitor. We'd battled for contracts, poached each other's talent, and pushed each other to innovate. But beneath the rivalry was mutual respect. We were both immigrants who'd built empires from nothing. Both understood the value of loyalty and hard work. "Max, how would you like to buy Blackwood Electronics?" The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds. Then, "I'm listening." We met at a discreet restaurant the next evening, an old establishment in the financial district where deals had been made for generations, over aged scotch and perfectly cooked steaks. I laid out my terms. The price was fair, actually generous considering what I knew about Tech Giant's expansion plans, but I had conditions. "Complete executive restructuring," I said, watching his reaction carefully. "The entire current management team goes." Max raised an eyebrow, his steel-gray eyes studying me. "Including your son." "Especially my son." He leaned back, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "This isn't like you, Minerva. You've rejected every offer for 20 years. "Why now?" I told him everything. As I spoke, his expression shifted from curiosity to understanding to anger. "Ungrateful punk," he muttered when I finished. "You know, my father built Volkov steel from nothing in Siberia. When he retired, I threw him the biggest party Moscow had ever seen, because he deserved it. Because I asked him first. Because respect for your elders, especially those who gave you everything, is not optional." "Different times, different values," I said softly. "No," he countered firmly. "Basic human decency is timeless." We shook hands that night. The deal would be announced at my retirement party. The next 2 weeks required Oscar-worthy acting. I played along perfectly, pretending to be touched by the sudden attention. When Jasper asked about my retirement plans, I smiled and talked about gardening and traveling. When Celeste showed me furniture catalogs for my new Florida condo, I nodded appreciatively and even pointed out a few pieces I liked. "You're taking this so well." "Mom," Jasper said, one afternoon sitting across from my desk, "I was worried you'd be resistant to change." "Change is inevitable." I replied, remembering his email about my outdated methods. The key is adapting gracefully. He beamed, completely missing the irony. Exactly. That's why this transition is so important. The company needs fresh vision, new energy. Of course, I agreed, thinking of the forensic accountants currently combing through our books at Max's request. Meanwhile, I worked with Max's team on due diligence. We uncovered more than expected. Jasper had been siphoning funds into offshore accounts. Small amounts carefully hidden, but they added up to millions over 3 years. He'd made promises to investors about post-retirement changes that would have destroyed our company culture, moving all manufacturing to sweatshops in Southeast Asia, laying off 300 loyal employees, cutting benefits, eliminating our community programs. The evidence piled up in secure files, each discovery strengthening my resolve. This wasn't just about personal betrayal anymore. It was about saving the company I'd built, protecting the people who'd helped build it. The night before the party, Alistair confronted me in my office. He'd noticed my unusual calm, my lack of resistance to the obvious coup. "Something's going on, Min," he said, closing my office door behind him. "You're too calm. In 40 years, I've never seen you give up without a fight. What are you planning?" Alistair had been with me for 20 years, starting as a junior accountant and rising to CFO through sheer competence and loyalty. He deserved the truth. "Can you keep a secret for 24 hours?" I asked. He nodded without hesitation. I told him everything: the sale, the conditions, the evidence we'd gathered. His eyes widened. Then he laughed, a deep, satisfying laugh that echoed through my office. "Brilliant," he said. "Absolutely brilliant. Need any help tomorrow?" Just act surprised and maybe have security on standby. The morning of my retirement party, I dressed with extra care. Navy Chanel suit pearl necklace that had belonged to my grandmother. The Patek Philippe watch my late husband gave me. When we opened our first office, I looked in the mirror and saw not an old lady, but a warrior preparing for battle, the limousine Jasper had insisted on sending arrived at exactly 10 a.m. "Nothing but the best for your special day," he'd said. I smiled, thinking of the surprise I had planned for his special day. The conference room had been transformed. Crystal chandeliers replaced the usual fluorescent lights. White roses and gold ribbons adorned every surface. A string quartet played softly in the corner. The cake, a 5-tier monstrosity, dominated one table. My face reproduced in fondant on top. Employees filled the space, some looking uncomfortable, others excited. The board members clustered near the front, smug satisfaction written across their faces. Jasper stood at the podium in a new Armani suit, Celeste beside him in a designer dress that probably cost more than our first employees' annual salaries. "Welcome, everyone." Jasper began, his voice carrying the practiced smoothness of someone who'd rehearsed extensively. "Today we celebrate a remarkable woman, a pioneer in our industry, my mother, Minerva Blackwood." Applause filled the room. I smiled graciously, playing my part. "Mom built this company from nothing," he continued. "In 1980, she started with just a small loan and a big dream. She worked tirelessly, sacrificing everything to create what Blackwood Electronics is today." I noticed he skipped the part where I'd worked 3 jobs to support us while building the company, or how I'd mortgaged everything I owned to make payroll during the recession of '87. "But there comes a time when even legends must rest," he said, his tone shifting to what he probably thought was sympathetic. "It's time for new leadership. Fresh ideas, a modern vision that will take Blackwood Electronics into the future." I watched the board members nod approvingly, already calculating their profits from the changes they planned. "Mom has resisted many necessary changes." Jasper continued, warming to his theme. "She clings to outdated notions of loyalty over efficiency, sentiment over profit. While we honor her contributions, we must also embrace progress." Several employees shifted uncomfortably. These were people I'd refused to lay off during tough times, whose medical bills I'd helped pay, whose children's education I'd supported. And so as she begins this well-deserved retirement, I want to thank Mom for everything she's done. The future of Blackwood Electronics is bright, and were ready to maximize shareholder value in ways she never imagined possible. More applause, though. I noticed it was mainly from the board and newer employees. The old guard, the ones who'd been with me for decades, clapped politely, but their faces showed concern. Jasper gestured for me to speak. "Mom, would you like to say a few words?" This was my moment. I stood slowly adjusting the microphone, letting the silence build. The room fell quiet, expectant. "Thank you, Jasper." That was illuminating. I paused, looking around the room, making eye contact with as many people as possible. You know, when I started this company in 1980, I had nothing but an idea and determination. People said a woman couldn't succeed in electronics manufacturing. They were wrong. Nods and smiles from the audience. I've faced many challenges over 40 years. Competitors who tried to destroy us, economic downturns that threatened our survival, technological disruptions that forced us to evolve. But I never imagined my biggest challenge would come from within. The smiles began to falter. Jasper's face showed the first hint of concern. 3 weeks ago, I discovered plans for this party. Plans made without consulting me. I learned about board meetings held behind my back. Deals struck in shadows, preparations to remove me from the company. I built with my own hands. Gasps echoed through the room. Jasper stepped forward. "Mom, I can explain." I held up my hand, my grandmother's ring catching the light. I also discovered embezzlement plans to destroy everything this company stands for, and schemes that would betray every person in this room who helped build Blackwood Electronics. The room erupted in murmurs. Board members exchanged alarmed glances. So yes, today marks a transition, but not the one you planned. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the contract. As of 900 a.m. this morning, Blackwood Electronics has been acquired by Tech Giant Corp. Chaos erupted. Board members shouted. Jasper stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Celeste's perfectly made-up face contorted in shock. The terms are simple. I continued, raising my voice above the noise. Complete management restructuring. All executive positions will be reevaluated. Those found complicit in financial misconduct will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. You can't do this. Jasper finally found his voice. I'm your son. This is my inheritance. No, I said softly, but the microphone carried my words clearly. This company was never your inheritance. It was an opportunity, one you chose to abuse. I gave you everything. Jasper, a home when you had none, love when you felt abandoned, education, position. Trust, everything, except apparently the ability to appreciate it. Security entered then, Max's team right on schedule. They began escorting the board members out as Alistair stepped forward with folders containing termination papers. Your personal items will be sent to you, I told Jasper as security approached him. Your company access is revoked, effective immediately. Oh, and those offshore accounts you've been filling. Frozen pending investigation. The forensic accountants have been very thorough. Celeste tugged at Jasper's arm, her voice shrill. Do something! Call our lawyer, this can't be legal. It's completely legal, I assured her. I still owned 51% of the company. The sale is done, the contracts are ironclad. Your furniture order for my office has been canceled. By the way, I hope you kept the receipts. As security led them out, I called after him. Jasper. He turned, hope flickering in his eyes despite everything. The house in Westchester, the one I gave you as a wedding gift. The deed was always in my name. You have 30 days to vacate. I'm turning it into a transition home for aged-out foster youth. Maybe they'll appreciate opportunities more than you did. The conference room slowly emptied of board members and their allies until only loyal employees remained, the ones Jasper had planned to discard, like obsolete equipment. I looked at their faces, Maria from accounting, who'd been with us for 30 years, Tom from engineering, who'd helped design our first breakthrough product, Sarah from HR, who knew every employee's birthday and their children's names. Your jobs are safe, I announced. In fact, Tech Giant has agreed to improve benefits and create advancement opportunities. The manufacturing stays here, the community programs continue, and the culture we built together will be preserved. Alistair started clapping. Others joined. Soon the room filled with genuine applause, the kind that comes from relief and gratitude, not obligation. Max appeared beside me, impeccably dressed as always. Well done, Minerva. Ready for your new role? New role. He grinned. Senior Strategic Advisor. 5-year contract. Double your current salary. We'd be fools not to retain your expertise. Plus, he added with a wink, I'd rather have you as an ally than a competitor. As I laughed, my first real laugh in weeks. You always were a smart businessman, Max. I learned from the best, he replied. My father taught me to recognize value. You are valuable, Minerva. Your son needed this lesson. That evening I returned to my office, still my office for now. Carla had reappeared as if by magic, efficient as ever. I never doubted you. Ms. Blackwood, she said, handing me my favorite tea. I knew something was wrong when they told me to take vacation this week, as if I'd miss your retirement party. Thank you, Carla, for everything. I sat at my desk looking out over the city as the sun set. 40 years of memories filled this room. Tomorrow I'd start packing, not for retirement, but for a new chapter. The office would be relocated to Tech Giant's headquarters, but Max had promised to recreate it exactly down to the worn spot on the carpet where I paced while thinking. My phone buzzed. A text from Jasper. How could you do this to me, after everything I've done for you? The irony almost made me laugh. I typed back. I did exactly what you did. Made a decision about our futures without consulting you. How does it feel? Then I blocked his number. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is let them experience consequences. Another message arrived, this one from an unknown number. Ms. Blackwood. This is James Rodriguez from Foster Youth Alliance. We heard about your plans for a transition home. We have 15 teenagers aging out of the system this year who could really use your help. Would you be interested in discussing a partnership? I smiled, responding immediately. Yes, let's meet Monday morning. The next morning, newspapers ran the story. Tech Giant acquisition stuns industries. The Wall Street Journal's headline read, Blackwood's revenge founder sells company ousts son in dramatic boardroom coup. The articles speculated about the sudden sale, most noting the unusual timing with my retirement party. Only a few insiders knew the full truth. I met with Max to discuss transition plans. He'd already identified corrupt board members and begun legal proceedings. The offshore accounts contained nearly $10 million, money that would be returned to the company. What about Jasper? Max asked as we reviewed the forensic reports. He needs to learn consequences. I said, but he's still my son. I've set up a trust fund, modest enough to start over. He can access it in 5 years if he demonstrates genuine change. The conditions include community service, therapy, and proof of legitimate employment. Max nodded approvingly. Tough love. The only kind that works sometimes. Months passed. The transition home opened in the Westchester house. I spent mornings there mentoring kids who reminded me of young Jasper, hungry, angry, desperate for chances. We offered coding classes, business workshops, and life skills training. Afternoons were for Tech Giant, where I helped merge 2 corporate cultures while preserving what made Blackwood special. The embezzlement investigation revealed the full extent of Jasper's schemes. He avoided jail time thanks to expensive lawyers, but lost everything else: reputation, wealth position, social standing. The last I heard, he was working at a small startup in Portland, starting over from the bottom. Celeste divorced him within 3 months, taking what little remained of their assets. She moved to Los Angeles, already attached to another tech executive. I wasn't surprised. A year later, an envelope arrived at my office. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Dear Mom, I understand now. It took losing everything to see what I had. You gave me opportunities I didn't earn and couldn't appreciate. I'm sorry for the pain I caused, for the betrayal for not seeing you as a person, instead of just a resource to exploit. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness or the trust fund. I'm working as a junior developer, living in a studio apartment, taking the bus to work. It's hard, but it's honest. I'm in therapy, working through my entitlement issues and learning empathy. Thank you for the hardest lesson you ever taught me. I hope someday I can prove I learned it. Love, Jasper. I read it several times, then placed it in my desk drawer. Maybe someday we'd reconcile. Maybe not. Either way, I'd done what needed doing. The transition home thrived. We'd helped dozens of kids move successfully into adulthood. One young woman, Christina, showed particular promise in electronics. She reminded me of myself at that age. Brilliant, determined, underestimated. You could run a company someday, I told her during a mentoring session. She laughed nervously. Me, I'm just a foster kid who got lucky. So was my son. So was I in different ways. Never let others define your potential. Her eyes lit up. Will you teach me? I already am. 5 years passed quickly. Tech giant flourished with the Blackwood acquisition. The combined company led the industry in innovation and ethical practices. Max and I became unlikely friends. Our rivalry transformed into partnership. We co-authored a book on ethical business practices that became required reading in business schools. On the 5th anniversary of the acquisition, Max threw a real retirement party, one I'd actually agreed to. The guest list included employees from both companies, transition home graduates, industry colleagues who'd become friends, and surprisingly Jasper. He stood in the doorway looking uncertain. Gone was the designer suit, replaced by clean but simple clothes. He'd aged visibly, but there was something different in his eyes. Humility, perhaps. I wasn't sure I'd be welcome, he said. I studied him. The arrogance was gone, replaced by genuine vulnerability. You're always welcome to try. He handed me a small gift, a framed photo I hadn't seen in years. It showed us at his high school graduation, both beaming with pride and possibility. I found this while moving apartments, he said. It reminded me of who we used to be, who we might still be if you're willing. The room had gone quiet, everyone watching this unexpected reunion. I've learned. He continued, his voice steady but emotional. That family isn't about what you're owed, it's about what you give. I'm ready to give now if you'll let me. I looked at the photo, remembering that day, the hope I'd felt, the dreams I'd had for him, the pride in his achievements earned through hard work. Everyone deserves second chances, I said finally, but they have to earn them. I understand. I'm prepared to work for it. I nodded slowly. The transition home needs volunteers for the coding program. Think you can handle teaching teenagers? They're not easy. Angry, distrustful, quick to spot insincerity. His face lit up, not with the calculated charm I remembered, but with genuine joy. I'd be honored. I know what they're going through. Max appeared beside me, raising his glass to second chances. I clinked my glass against his to lessons learned. As the party continued, I watched Jasper interact with transition home staff, discussing volunteer schedules with genuine interest. He moved differently now, less swagger, more purpose. When Christina approached him skeptically, he introduced himself simply. I'm Jasper. I used to have everything and threw it away. Now I'm trying to earn my way back. The honesty surprised her. And me. Later that night, alone in my penthouse, I stood at the window overlooking the city. The Blackwood Electronics sign still gleamed on the building, now accompanied by the tech giant logo. A legacy preserved, not destroyed. My phone buzzed. A text from Jasper. Thank you for the chance, I won't waste it. First coding class is Tuesday. I'm actually nervous. I didn't reply immediately. Trust would take time, but hope. Hope was already growing. I thought about the journey. From betrayal to triumph, from loss to renewal. The company thrived. The transition home flourished, and maybe just maybe my family would heal. Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the best outcomes. Sometimes losing everything helps you find what really matters. I raised my glass to the city lights, to the future, to lessons learned and wisdom earned. Here's to new beginnings, I whispered, at any age. The next morning, I arrived at the transition home early. Through the window, I saw Jasper already there, setting up computers for the coding class. He moved with purpose, double-checking each connection, testing every mouse and keyboard. Christina arrived next, watching him suspiciously. "You're early," she said. "First impressions matter." He replied, "Especially second ones." I smiled, remembering saying those exact words to him years ago. Maybe he had been listening after all. As students filed in, I watched from my office. Jasper began the class not with technical jargon, but with his story. 5 years ago, I had everything: money, position, power. I thought I deserved it all just for existing. I was wrong. I hurt the person who gave me everything, and I lost it all. Now I'm here to help you avoid my mistakes. The raw honesty caught the teenagers' attention. They leaned forward listening. "The most valuable thing my mother ever taught me," he continued, "wasn't about business or coding. It was that respect and success are earned through hard work, integrity, and treating others well. I learned that lesson too late, but you don't have to." After class, Christina found me in my office. "He's different than I expected," she admitted. "I thought he'd be fake, like those other volunteers who come here to feel good about themselves." "People can change," I said, "when they want to badly enough." "Do you forgive him?" I considered the question carefully. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a path you walk one step at a time. We're both on that path now. Months passed. Jasper volunteered regularly, eventually joining the Transition Homes Board of Directors. He lived modestly in a small apartment, worked as a senior developer at an ethical tech startup, and spent his free time mentoring. The trust fund remained untouched. He'd told me he wanted to earn his way back without my money. One evening, we met for coffee at a quiet cafe. Our first real conversation since the confrontation years ago. "I've been seeing a therapist," he said, stirring his coffee slowly, "trying to understand why I did what I did." I waited, letting him find his words. "Entitlement." He continued, "I grew up with everything handed to me. I confused your generosity with obligation. I thought I deserved the company because I was your son, not because I'd earned it. And now I understand that everything you gave me was a gift, not a right. The home, the education, the opportunities. All gifts, I'm grateful. Mom, truly." The sincerity in his voice touched something I'd kept carefully guarded. "I made mistakes too," I admitted. "I gave you everything except boundaries. I protected you from failure, so you never learned resilience. I showed you love, but not always wisdom." We talked for hours, excavating old wounds, acknowledging mistakes, building new understanding. It wasn't perfect. The hurt ran deep, but it was honest. The Transition Home's annual gala approached. As founder, I typically gave the keynote speech. This year, I had different plans. "I'd like you to speak," I told Jasper during one of our mentoring sessions. He looked shocked. "Me, after everything. People know what happened. They know what I did." Exactly. These kids need to hear that mistakes don't define you. How you respond to them does. The night of the gala, the ballroom glittered with philanthropy and promise. Donors in designer gowns mingled with transition home graduates in their best clothes. Jasper stood at the podium, visibly nervous. 5 years ago, I stood in a similar room, plotting to betray the person who gave me everything, he began. "I thought success meant taking what you wanted, regardless of who you hurt. I thought power meant controlling others, not serving them." The room fell silent, his honesty commanding attention. "I lost everything that day: money, position, reputation. But I gained something more valuable: perspective. My mother didn't just punish me, she taught me. She showed me that true success comes from building others up, not tearing them down. He spoke about his journey, the humiliation of starting over, the struggle to change, the slow process of earning trust. The audience listened, moved by his vulnerability. Today I teach coding to foster youth, not because I have to, but because I want to. Because someone once took a chance on an angry foster kid, and that chance changed everything, even when that kid forgot to be grateful. He looked at me, then his eyes glistening. My mother built an empire through integrity and hard work. I nearly destroyed it through greed and entitlement. Today I'm rebuilding my life the right way, one honest day at a time. And if I can change, anyone can. The applause was thunderous. I wiped away tears. I hadn't expected. Christina stood first, followed by other transition, home youth, then donors, then everyone. After the speech, Max found me on the terrace. He's grown. He observed watching Jasper interact with guests. We both have, you know, Max said thoughtfully. Tech Giant is launching an ethics division. We need someone who understands both success and failure, someone who's lived the consequences of poor choices. If you're comfortable with it. I smiled. Ask him yourself. He makes his own decisions now. Later. As the evening wound down, Jasper found me by the windows overlooking the city. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For loving me enough to let me fail. For being strong enough to stop enabling me, for giving me a chance to earn my way back. And I hugged him then. The first real embrace since that awful day. I never stopped being your mother. I whispered I just had to become the mother you needed, not the one you wanted. We stood together looking out over the city, comfortable in silence that spoke volumes. 10 years after the betrayal, Blackwood Tech Giant led the industry in both innovation and ethics. The transition home had expanded to 5 locations across the country. Jasper had worked his way up legitimately, now heading the company's ethics division and serving on several nonprofit boards. At my real retirement party, at age 75, I looked around at the legacy we'd built. Not just the company, but the lives changed. The lessons learned. The family reforged through fire. Jasper gave the toast. To my mother, who taught me that the hardest lessons create the strongest foundations, who showed me that true love sometimes means letting someone fall so they can learn to rise, who built an empire and saved a soul. Mine. As I raised my glass, I thought about that banner from years ago. Happy Retirement Minerva. They'd meant it as a dismissal. Instead, it became a catalyst for transformation. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the opportunity to earn their own redemption. I smiled, truly at peace, ready for whatever came next. After all, retirement was just another word for new beginnings.